Story 1. Giving myself bangs during lockdown. I watched several YouTube tutorials and thought, how hard can it be? Turns out very hard. I spent 3 months looking like Lord Farquaad's long-lost sister. Story 2. This is a little dark and also embarrassing, but when I was an angsty teenager, I tried cutting myself once. I heard it was something people did. I just made a scratch on my hand and thought, oh no, that's not going to be a thing for me. I went on to have an eating disorder instead. This was many years ago. It's okay to have a little laugh about it if you're the kind of person who deals with dark things with humor. Sending love to everyone, especially angsty teenagers. I am so surprised by the response to this comment. We are all pretty messed up, but we are funny. Sending love to anyone who has had that dark inner struggle that manifested in self-harm in one way or another. Group hug. Everyone. Story 3. Methamphetamine. Never seen it or even met a person who used it until moving to North Carolina and meeting a girl who told me how much fun we could have together on it. She had a good job, a nice house, and looked incredible and healthy. Surely she knew something I didn't, so why not? It was her treat. It was terrible. I do not know if it works differently on people, but she became energetic, talkative, and touchy. I turned into The Walking Dead, feeling like my eyes were popping out of my head and wanting nothing more than for her to be quiet and get away from me, so I could endure until this misery ended. Sorry to bring drugs into this, but I felt poisoned and misled. I have been terrified of anyone even remotely familiar with that substance since. Story 4. I was prescribed diazepam for depression in the early 2000s. I took 1 dose and quickly realized that it would turn into a full-blown addiction very quickly. It seemed to solve all my problems in a numbing haze. I never took it again, but I had to get my boyfriend to pour it down the sink because I literally couldn't do it myself. The pull was so overwhelming. Even now, I can still remember the feeling it gave me. I can totally relate to people whose lives are taken over by it. Scary stuff. Story 5. When I started college at Virginia Tech, I thought that now that I was in the real South, I had grown up in the Virginia-Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, which, while certainly south of the Mason-Dixon line, is not really the South. I should give the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing a try. So I watched a race on television. At some point, there was a big accident. I remember thinking either A, someone is hurt and this is bigger news than the race, or B, everyone is fine, but there is a cool fiery wreck which is more interesting than cars driving. Turns out it was option A. This was the race where Dale Earnhardt died. I decided then and there that I am bad luck for the sport and they were better off with me not a fan. Story 6. Brown cheese is a specialty in Norway, where I currently live. Imagine a cheese with the consistency of plasticine and a sweet, unpleasant lingering taste that clings to your mouth. As a British person, I grew up with crumbly mature cheddar, Wensleydale, and red Leicester. I cannot imagine anything less cheese-like, and I like Dairy Lee triangles. Story 7. Running. I thought I would unlock some primal joy or inner peace. Instead, I unlocked shin splints and the taste of blood in my mouth. Story 8. Tried smoking for the first time, inhaled smoke, coughed, felt my throat dry, then felt disgusted. Never tried it again. Story 9. Snowboarding. I fell on the hill. One of my boots detached from the board, but the other did not. My body rolled over, and the snowboard did not, twisting my ankle severely. Never again. Story 10. Clubbing is loud and overstimulating, with men trying to get close to my friends and sticky floors. It is weird and not fun. Story 11. Matcha. I like tea. I like coffee. Someone told me I would love matcha, the frothy, unusual drink. I don't get the hype. I guess you could say it's just not my cup of tea. Story 12. Gambling. For context, I played blackjack, where you generally have the most control and best odds. Every loss felt like I could have bought Taco Bell with that money. I was constantly trying to make it back. I probably gambled wrong, but I will stick to the scratchers I get for Christmas from the one uncle. Story 13. A same-sex relationship. It turns out being turned on by kissing does not mean you will be turned on by the rest of it. Well, it was worth a shot. She was such a sweetheart. Story 14. Being positive, specifically only focusing on positivity, I was betrayed so many times that it made me hate positivity more than being neutral. Story 15. K2, the original synthetic marijuana. Many of my high school friends used it because they were frequently in trouble in court, on probation, or subjected to drug testing, and this substance did not show up on tests. For those unaware, it appeared at gas stations and head shops in the mid to late 2000s. It consisted of garden leaves crumbled, dried, and sprayed with chemicals found by mostly Chinese or Indian manufacturers. Testing of confiscated packets worldwide revealed substances ranging from drain cleaner to methylenedioxymethamphetamine, codeine, phencyclidine, and more. It was typically sold as potpourri, incense, or something similar to avoid being classified as a consumable product, protecting makers and retailers from liability when users ended up in the hospital or jail. It smelled like cat urine when burned. I cannot recall the taste. I took a hit, and it burned the back of my throat so harshly I started coughing violently and had to vomit. That was the end of my experience with anything related to marijuana, except once at university when I gave real marijuana another chance. I have a terrible reaction to marijuana. As expected, one hit caused severe dizziness, and I felt as if I had the flu for several days. It happens every time, and it is unpleasant. Story 16. Inserting a penis into my anal cavity. They say you have to try everything once. Well, I am here to tell you that is not true. Story 17. Fried silkworm larvae. There is a yearly festival in town that celebrates the countries of Asia, featuring many food stands. Many stands offer quick samples for $1 or $2, so my friend and I decided to try the fried silkworm larvae. The outside was hard and shell-like, then crunched when I bit into it. Next was an explosion of goo that tasted like rotten, fermented, and liquefied fish. While it was not the worst thing I have ever eaten, it was very close, and I know I will not be consciously consuming any more insects anytime soon. Story 18. Getting intoxicated triggers a migraine for me and makes me sleepy. I do not become rowdy or loud. I just want to take a long nap afterward. Story 19. Rhubarb. I don't get it. Is it a fruit? A vegetable? A confused plant with an identity crisis? You have to cook it before it's even edible. That should be a red flag, right? And the taste? Sour misery in stock form. Somehow it manages to ruin every dessert it touches. To top it all off, in my country there is a whole rhubarb season. Like an annual invasion. No escape. Just rhubarb. Everywhere. Story 20. I was already at the tail end of trying to include some form of religion into my life, and a friend of mine knew this and invited me to her church to see if I could make a spiritual connection there. The sermon was held at someone's house, a residence in a normal neighborhood. At the front of the room, there was a wall of paintings and photos of religious figures of all kinds: Jesus, Gandhi, John F. Kennedy for some reason, and a few others I didn't recognize. A number of dining room-type chairs were arranged facing the front, and about 10 to 15 people were seated. A couple of folks were dressed in normal everyday street clothes, and a few more wore a blend of Sikh and sari-type textiles. All were white people, by the way. The leader told us at the beginning that there were no rules or structure to follow, and that everyone was free to connect with the spirit any way they wanted, as well as donating any amount of money to the donation bucket at the front of the room. Then everyone, except me, proceeded to do their own thing. My friend stood up, stuck her arms straight in the air, and began to sway back and forth while singing. More than one person began speaking in gibberish. As soon as I saw one person fall to the floor and start rolling around, I asked the leader where the bathroom was, although I could have figured it out on my own since it was a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house in a North Austin suburb, then quietly made my exit to my car and went home. To each his own, and no judgment on those who could hang with that vibe, but that was my own personal tipping point to step away from religion once and for all. Story 21. An escape room was not fun. People took it way too seriously, and I wanted to be playful and have a good time. Definitely not for me. Story 22. Bondage, whipping, and male chastity devices. I already like dominance and submission dynamics, so I thought maybe more traditional pain-based bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism would interest me as well. It did not. Everything about it just felt silly. I was handcuffed to the bedpost, striking myself with a cutting board, and I had to hold back laughter at how awkward and corny it felt. Story 23. Snow. I live in Australia and had never experienced snow. I was so excited to finally see it that I went to New Zealand and fulfilled my childhood dream. However, I absolutely hated it. Snow is the worst. The moment I touched it, I could imagine my Scottish ancestors laughing at me. I now completely understand why they immigrated to Australia. Snow is absolutely awful, and I do not think I will ever go near it again. Story 24. Sex and relationships. I knew immediately that it just was not for me. I tried it a few more times and did all the things. I just do not understand what I am supposed to get out of it. I do not understand how people live their lives chasing it. Feels good, sure, but not good enough to make a bunch of unwise decisions or stay in bad relationships. I do not get it. Story 25. Weed. I tried it once when I was a teenager. It did not really do much for me. In hindsight, it was probably low-quality weed, but it was free. I never felt the need to try it again. Story 26. A glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonist, such as Zepbound or Ozempic, gave me severe anxiety, panic attacks, and depression. I then found several support groups of others who had the same side effects and more. It is a serious medication and many people have success, but I wish that people took it more seriously and not just to lose some quick pounds. There are major, long-lasting risks for some. Story 27. Cocaine. I liked it too much and realized that I would destroy my life if I continued on that path. Once was enough. Story 28. Skydiving. It was an exhilarating experience. But I honestly liked the airplane ride more than the jump. The fall itself was uncomfortable. I could barely breathe from the air rushing past me, and it felt more like I was being suffocated by an invisible mattress than anything else. When the parachute opened, it was mostly uncomfortable. It felt like I was just dangling in the air, as you do not really notice the movement much outside of the wind, and it was kind of boring after a couple of minutes. Also, the parachute dipped up and down due to the wind, which made me seasick. Story 29. The gym is not my preference. I dislike the culture and sweating, so I much prefer being inactive. Story 30. Prostitutes. It was a strange and unsettling experience. The sex worker was okay, and I respect that she, like anyone else, has to make a living, but it is still difficult and sad. Story 31. Strip clubs. This might have been an exception, but my friends and I went to Leeds some years ago for a weekend out. We stayed at a premier inn and ended up in the gay district. After some wandering, about 6 men and 2 women ended up at an out-of-the-way place under a bridge. The moment we entered, it felt like one of those mafia-run clubs you see in movies. 2 others and I quickly went back outside for about an hour until the rest joined us. So far, it is the only place I have ever been where my instincts were screaming at me to get out. Story 32. Cryptocurrency trading and gambling. I made a good amount of money, turning $100 into $660, but it is way too stressful for me. Story 33. Beer. To be frank, I tried it a few times, each about a decade apart. The first time was when I was 10, and my dad let me take a sip. I thought it was the nastiest thing. When I reached the legal drinking age, I thought, oh, well, I was a kid, so of course it was gross. And tried it again, managing only 2 sips. Maybe another decade later, I was in a desperate situation, and it was the only thing to drink. I tried it for the last time and spat out the first sip. I prefer alcohol that is sweet. Story 34. Stand-up paddleboarding. I think the longest I managed without falling was about 2 or 3 seconds. I ended up mostly sitting on the board floating around while other people in my group were happily standing on it as if it were the easiest thing in the world. I am generally more of a pool person than a beach person, since the pool is not actively trying to kill me. Story 35. DoorDash. I wanted to make some extra money, getting mistreated and ignored by fast food managers, speeding across town in rush hour, only to end up in a dangerous neighborhood for a $3.86 payment. Just wasn't worth it. Story 36. Music concert. It was loud, crowded, dark with flashing lights, and not enjoyable for me. I walked back to my car, and my ears were ringing so loudly that I could not hear my own footsteps. I disliked it. Story 37. Raw fish. I was not allowed to eat it as a child. I tried it as an adult and ate a whole poke bowl with salmon. The texture and flavor were just not for me. Story 38. Norwegian brown cheese. In quotes, because no one will convince me that it qualifies as any form of cheese. To any Norwegians here, sorry, your country is stunning, but what were you thinking? Edit. The cheese damaged a tunnel according to an article. Story 39. Skiing. People do this for fun, and I will never understand. You are freezing cold, flying down the side of a mountain. It is hard to gain control, and if you fall, good luck getting back up. The best part is it only cost me about $300 between parking, lift tickets, and equipment rental. I suppose if you get really good at it, it can be exciting, but unless you pick it up quickly, it is just exhausting and expensive. Story 40. Exercising. I have tried several times throughout my life to start exercising because it is good for me. However, it is exhausting, everything hurts, and I feel terrible afterward. Instead, I go outside and do yard work or wash a vehicle to get my heart rate up. Story 41. Alcohol. No, I got drunk once in my 20s and blacked out, losing time. Never again. Now I am 68. Still no. Story 42. Snowboarding. I had no idea how to ski, and it was a class trip. I had never been in the snow and had no snow gear. I went in jeans and a regular jacket. I pulled my groin and injured my knees and ankles. Story 43. I have used weed more than once, but I do not like the way I feel with it. It is legal where I live. I do like cannabidiol cream for pain. Story 44. Being a therapist. Graduate school and internship convinced me this was not for me. Being a restaurant server is very stressful. I do not know how people manage it. Story 45. Snorkeling was cool because I enjoyed seeing the fish. I did not like wearing the gear. Fit fine and did its job, but breathing through a tube was not relaxing for me at all. Story 46. Heroin. I did a small line once and it made me sick for 3 days. The person who served the line on the CD case told me that I would feel better if I did another one. And fortunately, I was smart enough to say, go away. Story 47. Marriage. Not that I do not like couple life, it is just that the institution is basically a social scam for men and women alike. Story 48. Gun range. Shot a .22 caliber rifle, an AR-15, and a larger firearm that I did not recognize. I flinched every time I pulled the trigger. Once was enough. I am good without guns. Story 49. Riding a horse. They are huge and tall, and I was instantly ready to not be on the back of a giant fur-covered quadruped with a small mind of its own. Story 50. Cycling. Dragged my dad's old bicycle from his shed. Found out everyone else was using electric bicycles. Okay, I'm in decent shape. Most stressful and disappointing day in a while. Horrible when on roads and putting in top effort just to try to keep up with the other people cheerfully cycling along. Cycling can be very frustrating. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.